Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Mr. Mikhail's Manor of Mischief, Magic, and Mystery, the podcast where we talk about music, the occult, and just day-to-day life. I am your host, Andrew Mikhail, and welcome to the 6M podcast. And we're back. Hope everyone is doing okay out there amidst the craziness that just keeps getting crazier as time goes on. I hope you all are staying safe and staying sane. I am doing my best as always. And unfortunately this week we are not joined by the lizard. Sorry to all of those that are waiting for that episode to drop. But I'm thinking of changing up the format of the podcast just a little bit. Just because I'm trying out some new things. Okay, can I try this out? Is that okay with you guys? I don't know, but basically my plan, and this could change pretty much based off of how it's received, is to do a solo podcast one week, and then the other week either have the lizard on or invite some friends or music industry folk or, tour buddies or road dogs, whatever you want to call them, on the podcast. And I'm just trying some different stuff out. I don't know. If you guys have an opinion, I would love to hear it because I'm not getting much feedback, unfortunately, on, changes to the podcast that I've been making or anything like that. So if you guys can, please head to our Facebook group on Facebook. It is called Mr. Mikhail's Manor of Mischief, Magic, and Mystery, the podcast. That is the name of the Facebook group. It is an exclusive group, so if you're a listener, head over there, join the group. I'll accept you, and then we can start talking to each other, and you guys can ask your questions where I can actually see them. You can submit your band for a feature there. We could do all kinds of cool stuff via the group because honestly, guys, I don't want to make a Facebook page. Don't make me make a Facebook page, please. I don't want to make an Instagram account, but if I have to, I guess I have to. But so far, this podcast, and it's pretty impressive how well it's doing considering it's all word of mouth and just socials, which is fucking awesome. So, as always, guys, I want to thank you for listening to the podcast. And if you're just tuning in for the first time, please check out all the episodes before it. We're in the middle of quarantine, lockdown, whatever the fuck you want to call it. And I know you guys got the time, and I got the time to keep making them for you. So, just a side note, being that I'm the singer-guitarist of Serpents US, and I use this podcast as a jumping point for all news concerning Serpents. Everything is business as usual. Unfortunately, we have no shows to promote, no album coming out, but because of whatever is happening in the world, we kind of took a chill pill with, trying to sell merch and sell CDs and sell. So if you guys want to win some stuff for free, head to our Instagram at Serpents Metal. We're running a giveaway this week to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of the recent album, our most recent album, Temet Nose. So if you want to win some free shit, head over there and follow the instructions, and you could win some free stuff as opposed to paying for it. I don't know why you guys don't want to do that. So head over there, do that, and just listen to us on Spotify. That's all I ask. Literally, I'm trying to give away merch to you guys, and all I ask is just to listen to the music because that is the purpose of the band. We make music. We're not a merch company. That's what I think is a little lost these days amongst my peers, but I get it. Hey, not everybody is a self-sustained machine right now, okay? So if you guys want to help out, or if you guys just want to listen to some cool music that you probably haven't heard before, check out Serpents US and throw us on a playlist or something. Jesus, come on now. But that's it for announcements with the Serpents Camp. Stay tuned for that Slayer cover coming soon as we work on new material. So it's going to be some time before you guys hear anything brand new from us. Unfortunately, when you make symphonic death metal, deathcore, black metal, metal, whatever the fuck you want to call it, it takes a lot of time to create. And we have just begun album number 4, so hang tight on that, okay? But onward to this episode. So basically, I'm changing it up, as I said earlier. I'm going to be answering a question, a listener-based question. I'm not going to be announcing people's names, just out of privacy concerns. I've been reading some articles and I'm trying to up the ante with the podcast, and I've been finding out that people really don't like it when you state their name and their question. So I'm just going to roll right through and answer the question. And the question is, which album changed your life? Basically, I think what the question is actually asking is, which album turned you on to metal? So the answer to that is Soulfly's self-titled album. I believe the one from 1998. Maybe even the Digipack version. I don't know. I think both of them, they're both the same album. Except for the Digipack came with an extra CD of remixes and live shit. But anyways, I'm getting off track. So that is the album that changed my life for the better or worse. Without that album, I probably wouldn't have got into metal, because it came into my life at a very crucial time. Just to paint the picture for you guys, because this podcast is just going to be a short one, so hang in there. But to paint the picture for you guys, as a kid, my parents, big music heads, whether we were in the car, whether we were in the house, whatever, my parents would usually blare music, or if the TV was available, I would be in the living room watching MTV all day, every day. Well, pretty much, not all day. I liked The Simpsons and stuff like that. But The Simpsons and movies and stuff, but I'm getting off track. Basically, I would watch MTV all day, every day. And, with that, back in the day, I sound old. Well, back in the day, they actually played music instead of just reality TV shows with music as the background. So, they would play rock, they would play metal, they would play hip hop, country, rock, country, I don't know, like Tom Petty and shit. So classic rock, maybe? I don't know what you would call it. But, so yeah, they would play all kinds of shit. And unfortunately, I wasn't a big fan of the grunge movement. And since we're talking the 90s, that was prevalent on the airwaves and on the radio waves. Nirvana. No, I'm just kidding. But I was never really a big fan of grunge. It was only till later in my life that I got turned on to like Alice in Chains and stuff like that. But at that time, I was mainly just enamored by stuff like Danzig and Metallica. And, it also helped that my parents, mainly my dad, validated that liking towards them, that type of music, because my dad would blare Metallica and he would be like, this is what you this is what music is. You got to play music like this, because I always wanted to, well, not always, but I think around that time I was destined to play metal or music in general. So, between that, TRL or Headbangers Ball or MTV X or MTV whatever, I got turned on to stuff like Limp Bizkit, POD. I don't know, was POD around then? I don't know. But, Limp Bizkit was huge back then. And, with Metallica from my dad, Journey or Scorpions from my mom, my parents listening to industrial shit like Ministry, 80s shit, disco shit. I just got a whole cocktail of weird tunes and cool harmonies and whatever. But, Limp Bizkit was all the rage because, hip hop was huge at that time. I think it was like DMX was really big at that time, or like Rough Riders and shit like that. So, I was taking in so much music, and I think we're talking, I was in elementary school, and Limp Bizkit was like the closest thing to be like, oh, this is everything, but it's mine, But, as kids do, they go to school and they talk with their friends and they're trying to fit in. So as a kid, I had this one friend, I'm not going to name him, but, we would always go tit for tat. I would go to school and be like, hey, have you heard this? And he'd be like, yeah, that shit sucks. Well, to use his words, he would always be like, that's gay. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, that's gay. This is better. You don't know shit until you heard this. And please, if you guys have had a friend like this in your life, let me know, because I think this guy was one of a kind. We're still friends to this day. Obviously, our relationship is a little bit different, but you guys get the picture. But yeah, he was always like, yeah, that's gay, blah, blah, blah. So I remember showing him Limp Bizkit, and he was like, whatever. He's like, have you heard Soulfly? And I'm like, what's Soulfly? He's like, you're gay. I'm like, what the fuck is your problem? So I was like, yeah, no, I've never heard of it. He's like, yeah, go listen to it before you talk to me, or something like that. And being a Middle Eastern kid, I didn't have access to, a CD, what I think it was, whatever, that mail service back then where you would pay like $20 and you would get like 100 CDs in the mail throughout the year. I forgot what it was called. If you guys remember that, head to the Facebook group and drop a line. But yeah, like I didn't have that cash. My parents didn't have that kind of money to throw around. So what I would do as a kid, I would get rides to the library at least 4 to 5 days out of the week, because I had to tag along with my parents to work after school because they didn't trust me to be alone, which honestly became a huge character building experience, because while I was at my parents' work, I think at the time my mom, she worked in like the cafeteria at like Venture or Target, or I don't remember what it was called. And I would sit in the booth all night until my mom got off of work. And, I would do my homework, or, I have horrible attention span problems that was never diagnosed. Thanks. If you guys can't tell. But I would read magazines or look at pictures pretty much. And back then, you could go to the magazine stand and you would find Circus, Hit Parader, like Metal Maniacs, Kerrang. So basically I would sit and just thumb through all these magazines because I was like, oh, Limp Bizkit, I got to check this out. And then you would see like pictures of West Borland, Puddle of Mud. We all see how that one panned out. Metallica, Slipknot, and yeah. So basically, when I would read these magazines, I would write down which bands looked cool. Weird, right? And I would go to the library with my list, and I would check out CDs or DVD, or not. I think DVDs might have been around. I don't remember. We didn't have a DVD player. We had a VHS player, but so I would go to the library and rent CDs secretly behind my mom's back. So when that happened, you know, I would check out all the rap stuff that I couldn't listen to. I would check out, you know, Black Sabbath or Ozzy. I remember, you know, because my parents are Middle Eastern, so they weren't keen on this devil shit. So I would secretly go rent Iron Maiden. I remember I got Ozzy's Osmosis, stuff like that. And how I got into Limp Bizkit, I was like, oh, $3 bills at the library. So I rented that. Now you're up to speed. Great. So, you know, once he told me, like, you got to listen to Soulfly, you know, I started seeing pictures of Max Cavalera in these magazines, right? And I think when the album came out, the library didn't have it. And I was really bummed about that. But then I read some article that showed that Fred Durst was on one of these tracks from that Soulfly record, and the song was called Bleed. And I remember reading an interview about it. I'm like, oh, I have to hear this. I have to hear this. So I requested from the library, hey, can you guys get this album, man? And thankfully, it was a Roadrunner CD. So I waited, 2-3 weeks? And eventually I got a call saying, hey, your CD's in. You want to come rent it? I'm like, yes. Or, well, they called my parents or whatever. So I ended up getting my hands on the album. And as someone who really didn't dive into that part of metal, I was blown away. It was something I've never heard before. I don't know if you guys have heard the record, but if you haven't, go check it out. Just the sound and the rawness of the album as a kid just blew me away. And I was one of those kids that like walked around with a CD player or a mini disc player or a tape player all day, every day. So, you know, I even went to concerts with the CD player because I wasn't interested in hearing, you know, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, which now I'm like, damn, I should have fucking paid attention. But, you know, with the guitars being low tuned and just fucking crunchy but heavy, the drums, I think Roy Mayorga, I think he plays in Stone Sour now. His drumming was like oddly tribal and really groovy, and the fucking snare just popped through your headphones. Just groove. And not to mention the lyrics. The lyrics were approachable. I'm not saying the lyrics were bad because I love Soulfly and I love Max Cavalera. I love Max's work in Sepultura. I love Nail Bomb, and even his later work. So the lyrics just made sense to me as a kid because it was straightforward, unlike my own lyrics, which I should probably fix. But it was just straightforward. It's approachable. And it was just fun. It was fun to listen to. Like, if you listen to the album, you'll hear like just energy from it. And I think this is after he left Sepultura and Nail Bomb. And that was kind of his big fuck you to everyone, which was pretty much how Serpent started. Same backstory. And you could just feel that fucking aggression and just energy from the album. And not to mention, I'm a Middle Eastern kid, so you hear all this tribal drums and just odd instruments like the berimbau, I think that's what you call it. Shit like that I've never heard before in metal. So I was hooked immediately. Hooked. And then I started seeing, like I said earlier, Max in all these magazines, and I realized, like, oh, he's just like because keep in mind, I'm looking at Limp Bizkit and Metallica and all these like nicely polished dudes and whatever. And I see Max at the time, and he's just like grungy looking, camo everywhere, Brazilian flags everywhere, dreadlocks. And he was kind of a bigger dude, like not fat, but I'm saying like he's a big dude, which something as a big kid gave me hope. Like I was like, whoa, look at this guy. He's cool as fuck. And honestly, like from there, that album got me hooked. And when I was at school, I started diving in deeper. So I would go on the computer at school, and I became friends with most of my teachers to the point that any time we had downtime at school, I would be on the computer, on the Soulfly's website or whatever website, Blabbermouth, back then. And I would look at news, and I was like, what is Sepultura? Or what is Nail Bomb? And then I'm looking at like, what's that song? There's a song on the Soulfly record with Chino. And I was like, who's this guy? And then all of a sudden you start seeing Deftones in the magazines, Fear Factory in the magazines, Slipknot, and others. And I'm like, oh, I should fucking listen to these bands, because if they're like Soulfly and they're in the same magazine, then I'll for sure like these bands. And it was, I think, the cover of Guitar One magazine, where I saw a picture of Max with Dino Cazares from Fear Factory, Assassino, Brujeria, bunch of bands, who's also a bigger dude. So again, I'm like, who is this guy? And I was like, I have to hear this. So then I check out Fear Factory's Obsolete. Sight unseen. I think I used that word right. I picked up Obsolete literally. I got my hands on it without even having to listen to a track. And I was blown away by what I heard. And I still listen to Obsolete to this day. My first show, I wore an Obsolete shirt with camo shorts, playing a BC Rich Warlock. Like I idolized these guys. And, also, I call it the trifecta now. Like as a kid, I idolized Max, I idolized Dino, and also Mick Thompson from Slipknot, because he was another big dude, big scary dude. Played a BC Rich Warlock, which Max also played at the time. I never really liked Dino's Ibanez guitar. And but I gave him some slack, because Resurrection off of Obsolete or Descent, fucking classics. But so that album introduced me to Slipknot, Fear Factory, System of a Down, Nail Bomb's Point Blank, Sepultura's Chaos AD, which oddly enough I fucked up, and I remember the regret in my heart when I bought Sepultura's Against album, which I think was Derek's first appearance with Sepultura, because I thought it was like the last Max album, and I was like, I have to hear it. And I bought it, and I was like, what is this? Which now, like, I'm like, dude, that was pretty sweet. I like Sepultura now, and I like old Sepultura just like how I like old versions of current band. Like, I don't give a fuck. If I like a band, I like a band, okay? Fucking lay off. But it was then where I started hearing more thrash. I think I picked up Slayer's Diabolus and Musica because of the cover and because it was thrashy. And then, also Deftones, Around the Fur, Cradle of Filth's Cruelty and the Beast, because it just looked scary and it was like everything my parents told me not to listen to. And honestly, like, I started obviously going back to my friend and I started bragging, like, yeah, but have you heard Fear Factory? He'd be like, yeah, duh, everyone's heard of Fear Factory. And I'm like, oh, fuck. So I'd always up the ante with him. And that competition as a kid to like fit in really drove my fandom into extreme music and my loyalty towards these guys, because I was like, look at them, they're doing it, man. Like big dudes, scary looking dudes. Like, this is something you've never really seen before. Like, obviously you would have your alternative looking guys, like, fuck, even like Jim Morrison could be considered alternative, like when he was like bigger. But they were in the pocket, so to speak. Like, Dino is a guitar player, Mick Thompson is a guitar player, Max is a guitar player / vocalist. Sounds familiar, huh? All I need to do with Serpents is fucking wear camo, and the prophecy will be fulfilled. But fast forward to today, and this is why I said, like, this album changed my life. Like, the latest Serpents album, Temet Nose, I did the album with Logan Mader, who, as a kid, okay, let me backtrack real quick. I'm sorry. I know I'm all over the place, but I'm excited. So as a kid, I was not allowed to have any posters or anything on my wall. I was not allowed to have anything crazy or cool. But I was allowed one poster behind my door. And as a kid, I would go to Sam Goody. I would go to, I think, FYE or Tower. And I became friends with not all of them, but I became friends with a lot of the people that worked there. So every time I would come in, they would be like, yo, I got something for you. And I'm like a kid. And my mom would like be like, all right. We would go to the mall and she would be like, all right, I got to do some shopping. Come with me. And I'm like, can I go to Sam Goody or can I go to Tower? And she's like, yeah, whatever. Don't ask me for nothing. So what happened was, I would go to Sam Goody and they'd be like, oh, have you heard of Korn? Have you heard of Spine Shank? Have you heard of, this and this and this? And I'm like, no. And they would play it for me. They would let me pre-order CDs and I would ask my mom, like, hey, can I get this? And I didn't ask for much as a kid. Just give me a cheeseburger and some good tunes and I was set. But at Sam Goody, they had one Soulfly poster and it was like a rare one. And it was basically just a logo and then a band picture. And one of those, the only poster I was allowed to get was that Soulfly poster. And oddly enough, later on in my life, just out of sheer coincidence, I ended up hitting up Logan Mader to work with me on the new Serpents album. And he did. And now, for the rest of my life, I could say that, the power of manifestation is a real fucking thing, guys. That, like, I can't make this story up. And to drive it even further, for those of you that are like, yeah, you could easily, hit up so-and-so to do a record as long as you pay them. I ended up playing shows with Serpents with Mark Rizzo as the first Serpents shows as a band again last year. And for those of you that don't know, Mark Rizzo is a nice guy, but he's also the guitarist of Soulfly currently. And he used to be an El Nino, even though he probably wouldn't admit it these days. I talked to him about that. It's kind of awkward, but oddly enough, El Nino was another one of those, hey, have you heard this? And I'm like, no. And I saw Christian, shout out to Christian Machado, I think that's how you say his last name. I don't know. Nice guy. But he looked like Max, and I was like, I have to hear this. Go figure. Fucking Roadrunner, man. Cranking out the hits. Shout out to Typo Negative as well. But so not only did Serpents work with Logan, we played our first shows back with Mark Rizzo. And honestly, and I've talked about this before, but the biggest proof of manifestation is Max changed my life. He influenced my sound, tribal, metal, whatever. I mean, if you listen to Serpents, it's symphonic, yeah. But you do hear some of that Middle Eastern tribal sounds in there. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go listen to Serpents. You will hear tribal drums underneath a lot of the tunes. But that's beside the point. I forgot where I was. But anyways, later on in my life, I found out that Max became a big fan of my old band, Oceano, to the point where he named, their second CD, I'm not going to go into all that shit, but he named, the second Oceano album like his favorite of the year, and he became a big fan, aka, he's heard Depths, he's heard the other one, and that just blew my mind. And to drive it even further, I don't know, maybe you guys can confirm because I haven't picked up the book, but I heard he talks about it in his book, My Bloody Roots. And I even confirmed with his son, Richie, if the hype was real. And honestly, dude, like, that was one of my biggest accomplishments, is gaining Max as a fan, because I was, probably one of his biggest fans as a kid. I had a picture that I printed out at school of Max in my little fucking wallet. As a kid, I didn't have money. I didn't need a wallet, but I had a chain wallet, and I had a picture of Max and a bunch of other shit in there. Dumb shit. But if that isn't an album that changes your life, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you guys. But side note, I think another big accomplishment in my life personally was when I first started gaining traction with the old band. I was about 110 pounds bigger than I am now. So I was about 330 pounds when I was in the old band. And being a deathcore band, everybody looked like, like Mitch Lucker or Ali Sykes or, Phil Bozeman, whatever. Shout out to all of them. I don't know Ali, but obviously the other two. But obviously, being a big guy all of my life, I've had opposition. I've literally had people from big labels tell me, you will never be anything because you are fat. Literally. Verbatim. I was told as we were coming up, you guys are getting hype on MySpace, but you're not going to be anything because no one wants your picture on their wall. And when I asked why, he said, you're fat. And then fast forward, literally a year later, we were on the Billboard charts, touring the world, and people all over the world would come up to me, mainly men, obviously, and tell me, you're an inspiration to me as a guitarist because you give me hope. And I mean, honestly, just like hearing that out loud, just saying it really makes everything all worth it. And it would have never happened if it wasn't for the Soulfly record. And I hope, obviously, Max is doing his own thing and he likes all kinds of metal, but I hope that Max gives Serpents a chance, along with whatever. I know Straight Line Stitch toured with Soulfly. Unfortunately, I wasn't in the band at the time, but hey, two out of three ain't bad. So isn't that cool? I don't know. I think that's a cool story. And also, I kind of needed the inspiration or the motivation myself right now. Amidst this craziness, I find it's very hard to, be motivated enough to continue what I'm doing because I don't know if you guys noticed, but the fucking whole music industry has stopped and people got shit to worry about. People got better things to worry about. So it was nice to even dive in to this little memory of mine and share it with all of you. So I think that about wraps up this podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Next week, I believe we're going to be back with the Lizard. And if you guys want to hear me with some guests, maybe even shout out Max. I don't know. Shout out Max or Gloria. Tell them I'm singing their praises over here. I would love to start doing interviews with my friends or idols or whoever. So if you guys want that, make sure to join the Facebook group and, sound off. But other than that, being that Serpents is a DIY band and we have no sponsors for this show, and being that we don't have a featured artist this week, follow Serpents on Instagram at Serpents Metal, Facebook.com/We Are Serpents, Twitter /We Are Serpents, YouTube We Are Serpents. We have a brand new, it's been about a little bit, a month old video that still needs some love for the Lust of the Lawless. If you guys really want merch, head to weareserpents.bandcamp.com, or if you're just overwhelmed with all these links, just head to weareserpents.com and get your pull. All right, guys, I'll see you guys next week. Stay safe, stay sane, and fucking stay metal. I love you guys.